This is an old clip, ladies and gentlemen. It is from 2001.
Mere days after 9/11.
In September of, I guess I don't know if this was September 15th or what, but here is Congresswoman Barbara Lee. She's on the House floor. You'll recall the invasion of Afghanistan started less than a month after 9/11. I think it was the first week of October, if I remember correctly. And here's Barbara Lee. And it's important to know the context at this time. I mean, I experienced it only from New York City, so I don't know what the feeling was, outside of New York, really. But I can tell you, in New York City, people were in shock. I think probably around this time that she's on this speech, my building was evacuated because there was some reports that the Empire State Building was going to be hit. And had the Empire State Building been hit, there would have been, fallout all within, blocks and blocks of that. I lived, 10 blocks away from the Empire State Building. Washington, D.C., of course, was also a target. And
that's where Barbara Lee's speaking. So right. She has, it's not New York City, but she has some personal understanding of what, people were going through in the wake.
And I think, everybody internalized it in some fashion or another. But there's a lot of shock, then obviously a lot of anger. It's important to know the context to appreciate what kind of courage this took in that moment. Here is Barbara Lee.
Mr. Speaker, members, I rise today really with a very heavy heart, one that is filled with sorrow for the families and the loved ones who were killed and injured this week. Only the most foolish and the most callous would not understand the grief that has really gripped our people and millions across the world. This unspeakable act on the United States has really forced me, however, to rely on my moral compass, my conscience, and my God for direction. September 11th changed the world. Our deepest fears now haunt us. However difficult this vote may be, some of us must urge the use of restraint. Our country is in a state of mourning. Some of us must say, let's step back for a moment. Let's just pause just for a minute and think through the implications of our actions today so that this does not spiral out of control.
Few did, particularly in the context of Afghanistan.
Well, she was the lone vote against the authorization of use of military force. Her voice shaking, as you say, the courage that took, as the fury and the pain was boiling over, and of course the already existing power structures at the Pentagon were chomping at the bit. I don't think that can be overstated.
And it was an intense time. Took a lot of bravery for her to do that. And then we've had 20 years, and we're going to talk more about the Afghanistan. We'll go over Biden's speech, but we've had 20 years, and really, there does not seem to have been at any point a long-term strategy or purpose for our presence there. And it was quite evident after the release of the Afghanistan papers that there was not even an attempt, it appears, and the decisiveness of the fall of the Afghan government, I think makes it clear that to the extent that there was some pretense that we were attempting to stand up the Afghan government, and train them and build institutions and train the military to function on their own was, even if that was the pretense, it was clearly not handled that way by our military and everyone else.
Do you remember the resignation of Matthew Ho in 2009? Because I didn't until I was going through Michael Hastings' book. But in 2009, he resigned, and it made the Washington Post. But here's a bit from his resignation. To put simply, I fail to see the value or the worth in continued U.S. casualties or expenditures of resources in support of the Afghan government in what is truly a 35-year-old civil war. I mean, the exact same thing is, we don't have a purpose here. What are we doing? I'm going to resign because I don't see what the point is.
Absolutely. And, a broad failure, even during the Trump administration, I would imagine it's going to come to surprise for many people that 2018 and 2019 were the worst year for casualties, civilian casualties, since 2002.
Tell that to John Cornyn.
And
who was trying to say that under Trump there was very few casualties in Afghanistan.
2018 and 2019 were record-breaking years in the 18 years prior, both in terms of the number of bombs and the number of civilians that we killed. And it was, Trump trying to, end the war, I guess, by creating some type of vacuum and distance between the inevitable failure of the Afghanistan government and his exit, if he was going to do that. We'll talk more about this on the other side as we go through Joe Biden's speech. Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.